home for a spoiled child. His parents are dead, but his parties are wild.
Okay, so now we're gonna take out a bunch of the riddles here. This one's a little tricky because it's Bruce Wayne's house, but it's pretty far off in the distance there. And some of these are actually going to be pretty interesting because what they're going to do is they're going to show us what some of the characters who did not appear in the game, what they're actually up to. And here we have Calendar Man. Calendar Man, who's been referenced in every single Arkham game. We always have to see that, you know, room full of calendars. In Arkham Origins, he was actually just about to be executed. And it was one of Batman's first big captures. Arkham Origins is pretty solid. I need to record that. Okay, this one right here. This is actually our look at Solomon Grundy. Last time we saw him was when we beat him in Arkham City. Was an interesting boss fight. But this room is not really big enough for him. That's the one thing I do gotta say. Although Solomon Grundy, he is more of a Superman villain than a Batman. So once they put him into Arkham City, that was sort of a sign of, you know, that it's taking place in, like, the, you know, Justice League DC type universe. And obviously we've had quite a few references to it here in Arkham Knight. We've seen, you know, LexCorp and all these other different things around. Ah, the Order of the Dumbasses.
I had 4 times as much brow furrowing allocated to that riddle.
I really wish they would have done a little bit more with Azrael. That mission, like, he showed up. Oh, is Scarecrow about to say something?
Mask is torn from you. What will you become? An outcast, a living ghost, trapped by the guilt of failure.
Huh. Yeah, Azrael. Like, you only see him, you know, just the one time. Like, okay, in that mission, like, it's the same every time. Like, you kind of do your little combat simulation controlling Azrael, and then just that little final confrontation in the clock tower. But I wish, you know, there could have been a little bit more to it. So far, that's been the one problem I would have to say with Arkham Knight, is all of these mission types, it's just the same thing over and over and over again. Like, you know, every Firefly mission played exactly the same. All of the Nightwing and Penguin, like, missions, those were exactly the same. Like, constantly. It would have been cool if they could have switched some of these up a little bit. And here we've got a reference to Bane. This is actually the first Arkham game that Bane is not in. He was in Arkham Origins, Arkham Asylum, and Arkham City. Luchador! Now this is a pretty tricky riddle right here. You just have to scan the Batmobile. It can be on any island, anywhere, you just gotta scan the Batmobile.
Don't mistake my hiding beneath the orphanage floor for cowardice, Batman. I merely don't fight people who haven't proved themselves worthy.
Uh-huh. Whatever you say, Riddler man. Whatever you say. So I noticed, it was just the other day here that they actually released, Final Fantasy VII on iOS. I was actually I was like, wow, interesting that, like, iPhones and Android phones and stuff, they are strong enough to play a PlayStation 1 game. I mean, but I guess we are closing in on 20 years since Final Fantasy VII was out. But it's like, I remember just yesterday when PlayStation 1 was, you know, the big bad system. Now the games are actually strong enough to be on iOS.
Trump cards to play. I will wait until you see you have nowhere to turn.
And yeah, throughout the game, whenever Scarecrow would do that, all these, you know, like these TVs around the city, they would show Scarecrow. Riddler too, but you know, Riddler is not intimidating in any way, the way Scarecrow is, so we don't really give a shit. Fuck you, Riddler, by the way. But yeah, I was thinking I might pick up that Final Fantasy VII on iOS, give it a try. I saw that there was actually some interesting features built into it. You can actually turn off random battles, which is a little, I don't know, that kind of defeats the purpose of the game, but I mean, it could make just for interesting, you know, exploration. But there also is, like, cheat codes built in, like, you just flip a switch and then all of your characters will have maximum stats. I was like, oh, well, that's, that's certainly pretty interesting there.
Keep solving riddles, detective.
Yeah, blah, 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 Riddler. Keep solving those riddles, detective. Ah, the demon's head will return, you say? Yes, I'm pretty sure Ra's al Ghul probably will be returning in some future DLC. That's obviously what the demon's head is referring to there. Some news actually recently came out describing what some of the upcoming Arkham Knight DLC is going to be like. After we finish the main story here, after we take down Riddler and Scarecrow... Oh, hey! Hugo Strange, and then here's Joker chilling up here.
Point rescuing Officer Judas from Scarecrow's pointy clutches? He'll just betray you again.
No, I trust Gordon, actually. Thanks, though, Joker.
You know, Riddler's trials are fun, Batsy, but I really want to be there when he finds out what a riddle actually is.
Anything left, Joker?
It's
No.
too late for you, Bruce. I'm spread all over your mind like fresh blood on white bathroom tiles. You're mine by dawn, Bats. Toxin or no.
We'll see, Joker. We will see. Okay. So obviously Joker's done with his little gaggle-baggle here. Okay, so this tower right here, this is the tower where Hugo Strange obviously was in Arkham City. So that means that island over there, that's where Arkham City and Arkham Origins takes place. So that's pretty interesting. So Gotham City is like just the biggest fucking city ever, basically then. Because, you know, Arkham City and Arkham Origins, those areas were pretty large and they were over there. And then we saw where Wayne Manor was on the outskirts.
I guess now we know what happened to the identity thief you were tracking in Arkham City.
That, of course, is Hush that he's talking about. Okay, but I was mentioning before, after we defeat Riddler and Scarecrow, we're going to do a lot of the DLC. There is actually DLC for the Scarecrow Nightmare missions. They're pretty interesting. We'll be doing those. There is the DLC that takes place before Arkham Knight starts of Harley Quinn freeing Poison Ivy. Here we have, yep, that's the remainder of Poison Ivy right there. freeing Poison Ivy from the Bloodhaven police station. That's where Nightwing likes to hang out. We also have DLC of Red Hood taking down Black Mask, which obviously, now that we know who Red Hood is, that takes place after Arkham Knight. And then there also is the Batgirl DLC, where you fight Joker and Harley Quinn. But it recently was announced that they actually are going to be releasing some DLC in mid-September. And it's going to be Nightwing messing around with Penguin after the events of Arkham Knight. So that's pretty interesting, and it looks like, even though by that point I'll definitely have all the Arkham Knight videos out, it'll probably be like a week or 2 weeks later, and then we'll have the Nightwing DLC to put out. So Arkham Knight, I don't know how many videos long this is gonna be. I doubt it's going to surpass the longest, which was Final Fantasy Tactics 1.3. That's 120 videos. Arkham Knight certainly is not going to get there, because at this point it's only a little over halfway, but who knows? It could certainly finish up in the mid-90s once all the DLC in the future is released. Because I know people made such a big fuss about the fact that the season pass was $40, so I know they're going to put some good shit out to let us see that, it was worth it. And here we're just looking around Riddler, I guess that's Riddler's big-time planning room. Yeah, and the Elliot Memorial Hospital, that is, Elliot is who, what's his name is, Hush. Thomas Elliot. And here, this looks to be Killer Croc's area. We have not yet seen Killer Croc to this point in Arkham Knight, but you never know, he could be around at some point. Quite a trail of bones he left in his wake, though. Fuck.
75 riddles remain, and when you solve them all, we will do battle, Detective. Glorious battle! With one minor caveat. You won't solve them all.
Still 70 fucking 5 left. Is this not insane? There is so damn many here in Arkham City, man, or Arkham Knight, man. Alright, so we're going back down to Kirk Langstrom's laboratory. There is actually a riddle here in this room. Oh, you know what? Actually, I should mention this. Okay. So, Forever My Love, obviously Langstrom wrote that. But if we go to the GCPD, he's still in the GCPD. So, obviously, he must have put that there as the Man-Bat before we captured him, possibly? So another thing I was reading today is that the Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F movie actually has finally finished its theatrical run, and it has brought in, I believe, around $10 million, which is a huge amount of money considering that it was playing only in one theater in a lot of cities. Okay, and then here, this is Arkham Asylum. So from this main city, we could see where all of the different Batman games have taken place.
Batman ain't been the same since Joker checked out.
But it's interesting to see that the Dragon Ball Z movie made quite as much money as it did. I was actually a little surprised about that. And now they're finally going to be releasing it on Blu-ray in October. Okay, and we have all of the riddles taken care of now. So we've got all of the riddles done. All of the breakables are done. We have all of the riot bomb guys are done. So we're completely done with Founders Island, which is cool. And this unlocks Scarecrow interview tapes. Now all we have to do is just find the riddle trophies on Bleak Island and Miyagani Island. Every other area is completed. And it's actually interesting, but a lot of the trophies to find on Bleak and Miyagani Islands, they're a little easier to get than they were on Founders Island. And we'll start off by doing the Miyagani Island first. Then we'll knock out Bleak Island last, even though really you're probably supposed to do Bleak Island first.
First he punches you, then he betrays you, then he goes and shoots you. I've got to say, I'm actually starting to warm to dear old Jimbo. Shame he's probably dead.
No, Joker, he's not dead. No way.
You know,
We're Batman and we're gonna save him.
Fun, Batsy, but I really want to be there when he finds out what a riddle actually is.
Ah, we heard that line of dialogue. Thanks, Joker. Interesting that he's still appearing quite so often up on these rooftops.
It must be pretty boring waiting for your consciousness to dissolve into nothing. What say we kill us some time and some bad guys?
Oh, so another little piece of interesting information came out. So the Resident Evil 2 remake was recently announced. Obviously, super duper excited about that. I mean, it was only pretty recently that I completed the Resident Evil 2 LP on the channel, which was pretty successful, I might say. And now they're going to do the remake of this game. There was a fan-made project that was beginning to gain a lot of traction, a lot of steam, Resident Evil 2 Reborn. Some fans were actually making Resident Evil 2 again using the Unreal 4 engine. And it was becoming quite popular, and a lot of people are saying that it probably has a little bit to do with why this Resident Evil 2 remake is here at all, is because they were doing such a good, these fans were doing such a good job with the project, and, you know, other fans were taking notice, and then finally Capcom took notice. So now, obviously Capcom, like, they can't just let that project, you know, continue while they're gonna make an official Resident Evil 2 remake. And, you know, so a lot of people were waiting for the news to come out that Capcom would send them a cease and desist. But apparently that's not what happened. I guess Capcom actually got in contact with the team, that was the fan-made team that was making the Resident Evil 2 remake project, Resident Evil 2 Reborn. And they asked them to stop. And obviously, you know, the team realized why Capcom would ask them to stop. And Capcom actually invited them to talk with the developers and, you know, like, talk about the production of the game and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool, you know. Capcom didn't have to do that. They could have just, you know, sent a cease and desist letter, and that would have been that. Because now that they're making their official remake project, you know, a lot of companies just send cease and desist, you know, right off the bat anyway. I should mention that this little thing, it glitched out a little bit, and that the robot gets stuck under the wall. So I just had to redo it so that the robot didn't get stuck underneath this wall. Because you got to use the voice synthesizer and move him past that wall. And then once that happens, you can hit this right here, and you will, it'll resurrect the robot, so to speak. So I just got to make sure that the wall goes completely past the robot, which didn't quite so happen the first time. But, so if you guys remember a while back, there was actually a Chrono Trigger fan-made game being developed that looked really well. I believe it was it called Chrono Trigger Resurrection, I think? And a lot of people were very excited about it, but obviously Square Enix sent cease and desist for that, and that project ended up dying. Because in order for one of these projects to be successful, you basically have to, like, you can't tell anyone about it until it's ready to go. Like, you need to just be like, okay, so they completely make the game, and then they just release it. Because as soon as you start, like, spreading info about it, the company is going to send you that cease and desist, and boom, there, it's just going to be done. And so it was cool that Capcom did not do anything like, you know, cease and desist or tell them to stop, but they actually, you know, invited the team to share some ideas. And, you know, it makes a lot of sense because obviously this fan-made team, they know Resident Evil 2 inside and out. But believe it or not, some of the developers at Capcom, they may not, because even though it's the same company that originally made Resident Evil 2, I'm sure that a lot of the people who actually made Resident Evil 2 aren't even at the company anymore. You know, so like the head of the project, Producer H and stuff, like they, you know, I believe he might have been around working on the Resident Evil remake in 2002, but they weren't around back for the Resident Evil 2. So it's good to bring in these fans who have, obviously, knowledge of the game inside and out to sort of help out Capcom with this production. That actually bodes quite well for me, and it makes me think that, unlike Final Fantasy VII Remake, which looks like there's going to be changes to the battle system and stuff, which I'm not happy about, but then again, you know, let's see how it is when it comes out. But the Resident Evil 2 remake, it seems like it is going to have, you know, a lot of the same features. The, you know, the fixed camera angles, kind of that cinematic approach, the pre-rendered backgrounds, you know, the tank controls. It looks very promising. Because once Resident Evil 4 starts, they, you know, changed the formula for the Resident Evil games. But that's because, you know, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil Code Veronica, Resident Evil Remake, and then Resident Evil 0. That's 6 games that had completely the same formula. As far as recording on the channel, I'm actually beginning to get close to the end of recording that old style of RE game. Because we only have to do the remake and then Code Veronica, and that's it, because we've done all the others. Thank you.
Be careful, the bat's got a cannon on his car. He's kicking ass.
Yes. Why, yes, Batman is indeed kicking ass. And there is so many of these, where it's just this little wooden, breakable panel that you have to just fly into to get the Riddler trophy.
When I tested that riddle on one of my childhood bullies, he simply could not solve it. Not even on pain of death.
Okay, Riddler, you are very, very fucked in the head. Thanks. Yeah, this is another one of those really annoying Riddler trophies because we gotta use the Batmobile to kind of, you know, move shit all over.
You see the Bat's car? I'd like to go for a joyride in that thing.
Oh yeah, this one's pretty interesting. You have to fly straight through this little donut hole. There's no way to get inside here besides just gliding through the hole of the donut. I like that. Something about, like, that big sort of donut thing. Isn't that's like a place in LA, right? Because I remember that area being in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. And there's actually also a funny moment in Iron Man 2 where Iron Man is eating donuts on top of like that big donut thing. That's when Nick Fury comes to talk to him.
I've seen a couple of prison rides in my time, but this...
Actually, I was watching the whatchamacallit, X-Men Days of Future Past the other day. That movie, like, I remember it being amazing, but that movie is so good. Wolverine and young Professor X just steal the fucking show.
Not me, but the hypothetical time in which I would naturally complete the course.
Like, I just thought it was fucking amazing, their performances in this. I do have to say, so, I get caught on the environment way too many times doing this race, but we still do manage to make it in time. Like, right here, like, ending up just walking along that roof. That's not very good right there. So I am pretty excited for the next X-Men movie, X-Men Apocalypse, because, you know, Days of Future Past was so good. Although, one thing I do have to say is that the Fantastic Four movie was marketed as from the same team as the studio that did Days of Future Past, so I was like, oh boy. But, you know, Fantastic Four, which was complete and utter garbage that is just the worst, Days of Future Past was nothing like that. And hopefully X-Men Apocalypse will not be either. And I love how they're getting my girl Olivia Munn to be Psylocke. Damn you, Aaron Rodgers. And this is another one of those Riddler trophies where the puzzle starts basically once you get the actual trophy. Oh no! Whatever are we gonna do against these gun-toting Riddler robots? That's it. That drops the ceiling and those fuckers get crunched. Do the grandma's boy. Adios, turd nuggets.